And I mean, there is a fundamental difference between a business and a brand.
Yes.
Because a brand is more transactional, more short-term thinking.
A business.
Yes. It's how much are we going to sell? How much are we making? How much are we paying for stuff? Brand is long-term.
We got it next. That's how you finesse. We come for they next. We come to collect. Did it all on my own, yeah. When it brought it back home, yeah. Now they calling my phone, yeah. But I'm all in my zone. They not a threat. Tell them reset. When they're at their best, we still not impressed. Did it all on my own, yeah. When it brought it back home, yeah. Bought a watch with the stones, yeah.
Right before we start, we want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Chapter. Chapter ensures that your online business never sleeps. We started Chapter when you realize that businesses use social media to talk to their customers and they end up losing up to 40% of their sales due to abandoned carts. This happens when a customer DMs you on Instagram, a customer sends you a message on WhatsApp and you're not able to respond within 7 minutes. This then leads the customer to look for another business to look for that particular good or service that you're offering. With Chapter, you can be able to elevate the customer experience by running AI agents that can be able to respond to customers in less than 30 seconds on both Instagram and WhatsApp. If you want to make sure your business never sleeps, if you want to make sure that you can increase the revenue you're able to make by up to 5x, just visit www.chapter.co and we'll be able to help you. So that's Chapter without an A, so chpter.co, and we'll be able to turn your business into a business that will thrive in the AI future.
So hello, champions. Welcome back to another episode of Chapter Champions, which is your favorite entrepreneurship podcast. And today we are joined by none other than Pat Mahlangu. Hey, you see I'm learning, guys. Very excited to have him. I'll introduce him shortly, but right before I do that, just a reminder to subscribe so that you get notified when the next episode drops. Yeah, so Pat is an award-winning marketing and media entrepreneur, and he's the founder of Pattern Brands, a digital platform at the forefront of brand insights. So Pat has over 12 years of experience in this field of marketing, and he's an internationally certified digital marketer. He's also a co-author of a book, which is the book every marketer should definitely read. In 2023, he was named one of the top 200 young South Africans by Mail and by Guardian. So he's also an award-winning entrepreneur. So that's amazing. So we'll dive straight into it. Pat, I'd love you to say what's up to the audience and tell them who you are.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Jumbo. I am Pat Mahlangu, a marketing and media entrepreneur based in South Africa, Johannesburg. Pretty much my interests in business revolves around building brands and growing brands.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite business or life quote?
Favorite business or life quote?
Yeah.
I think it's one that I was first, introduced to by my mentor, Bilal. One that said, never average, always awesome. And really, in everything that I do, I always pursue awesomeness.
Okay.
And as you know, nobody remembers the average guy.
Absolutely.
It's either you have to be bad, terribly bad at something, or you have to be extremely good for you to be remembered. So I lean more on the extremely good.
Okay, but you need to pick a side to
on the awesomeness. Absolutely. Yes.
I like that. Yeah. That's interesting. Good stuff. So I read somewhere that Pat is the unsung hero of entrepreneurship. And I was like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I mean, obviously, that's also one of my achievements or sort of recognitions. So the Unsung Hero is an initiative by Sunday World. Again, Sunday World is one of the renowned newspapers here in South Africa that has been around for a very long time. And the unsung heroes, again, also pays homage, to young people that are doing incredibly well,
Yeah.
in different fields.
Yeah.
And I was, an unsung hero this year in business and entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the work that I do, particularly with the youth. In entrepreneurship, the Top 16 Youth Owned Brands Awards, which I started in 2022. We are currently planning for our fourth iteration.
Yes.
And really, again, there what we're pushing for is to recognize excellence, in young people that have managed to turn their businesses into household brands.
Yeah.
And just like in other parts of the African continent, whenever we talk about young people, it's always on the negative spectrum, in terms of young people are lazy, apathetic, entitled.
Yeah.
And with the Top 16 Youth Owned Brands Awards, we are challenging that narrative. We are actually telling a different story of an African youth. That is a young African youth that is taking matters into their own hands. That's starting things, building companies, creating employment opportunities for other young people, and contributing to the overall image of this continent.
Yeah, that's very right. I mean, we're just chatting earlier about what's happening in Kenya.
Yeah.
And, the older folk, whatever just happens, whatever the politicians do just goes.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing sort of a revolution,
Absolutely.
The young people are saying, no, we can't live like that. So they're really taking matters into their own hands. And
yeah. And if you think about it, I mean, many revolutions in the world, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
They always start with young people. In South Africa, in 1976, the June 16, or what's called the Soweto Uprising, it was young people that said, that's it. We won't be taught English and mathematics in Afrikaans.
Yeah.
And that really started a whole new revolution. In academia, for example, back in, I was still in uni in 2014, 2013, roundabout, with the Fees Must Fall movement. Again, it was young people who drove their agenda in South African academic landscape, to really challenge, the status quo when it comes to, pedagogy, teaching, and really pushing for a decolonized approach in terms of teaching and learning, at universities, and also to give access, to more young people to institutions of higher learning. It wasn't some professor sitting in their office and thinking, we need to change how we teach young people. We need to Africanize the content that we are teaching. It wasn't professors. But now the funny thing is that when they talk about it now, they're like, it was, it was their idea or out of their own initiative. Yes. But it was young people that took to the streets that said Rhodes must fall, because Rhodes is a symbol of colonialism, and for most parts where we find ourselves as Africans, it's because of that dark history. So any revolution always starts with young people, and we've seen it everywhere in the world. And I think if we take the energy that young people have and we channel it nicely,
the right places,
this continent can change in a blink of an eye.
Absolutely, I agree.
For the better, and we can become global players, and we can really, change the trajectory of this continent.
Absolutely. Yeah, awesome. So back to marketing.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you ended up as the top marketer, media guy.
Yeah.
What was that journey like? When did you first realize that I wanted to be in marketing? And how do you end up starting your own business in this space?
Sure. I think a lot of my, I'd say, upbringing. So I grew up in a rural area, right? And I wasn't exposed to much, right? And the little that I was exposed to was through watching television and listening to radio.
Yeah.
Growing up, I had a lot of aspirations, but what I always sort of wanted to be had to do with media, had to do with entertainment, had to do with communications.
Yeah.
Right. I remember at some point I wanted to be a PRO, public relations officer, and that was inspired by a guy called Pat Mahlangu. So he was the PRO for Kaizer Chiefs, one of the biggest clubs here in South Africa. And he spoke with so much energy. And I was like, I want to do that. At some point, I wanted to be a musician, believe it or not. I actually recorded a song, and then I also wanted to act. So there's a lot of things that I wanted to be. Yes. And I did try, or pursue those goals. But because of where I was, the environment didn't allow me.
Yes.
Even though I'd come up to Joburg for auditions, but it's not the same like when you're in Joburg where things are happening, right? Yeah. But when I matriculated, then things started to change because remember, I'm from a rural area. Secondly, I'm also I'm not from a well-off family. So I was the first one, to
break out.
To go to university.
Yeah.
And I really had to make a serious choice in terms of what I'm going to study, and I wanted to study law, believe it or not, even though I knew I have a creative mind, but I need to study something serious.
Like marketing is not,
the thing is, I didn't know marketing.
Okay.
I didn't know that there's a course called marketing. And if you study marketing, you may end up being a chief marketing officer. That world, I wasn't really sort of exposed to in my high school days.
Because when we're growing up, we were exposed to the usual engineering,
law,
doctor,
medicine. Exactly, medicine.
That's it.
Absolutely. And it's not like I was born in the 80s, by the way. Yeah. But that's the reality. And I enrolled for law at Vets. I wanted to study law at Vets, but I had to obviously couldn't continue with that because there was just no money.
No school fees.
No money for school fees. Then I went to UJ. I enrolled for IT.
Okay. That's University of Johannesburg.
Yes.
Okay.
I studied IT management.
Okay.
But as I was doing my first year, I got a job because also I've been that guy.
Yeah.
I've been hustling man.
Since day one.
So I got a job as a promoter.
Okay.
We're promoting LG phones. I'm not sure if you remember LG.
Yeah, I know LG.
Life's good.
Yeah, life's good. It's still there.
It's still there, but on the mobile side, they're no longer making. I don't think they make any phones or any good phones.
Okay.
But I got a job to promote. LG.
Yes.
And I had so much fun, man. For me, it was more fun than just me working and making money, you know?
Yes.
And I met the brand manager and the marketing manager. And I was like,
so you're promoting to students or who?
Actually, it was at a mall, at Eastgate Mall. So it was to the public.
Yes.
And
how did that promotion look like? Like, what was the actual thing?
The setup, it was, we had stands, it was an activation. And
so you just walk up to people.
If people are passing by and say, hey, come check out this new LG phone.
Okay.
But I enjoyed that. Right? Then that's when I felt like, no, man, this is what I want to do. I want to be that guy that convinces people to buy things, And it was on a Saturday. On Monday, I went to my department, to my faculty, and asked, how do I change my course from IT to marketing.
Okay.
Because that's I was clear that's what I wanted to do.
Nice.
But there was a challenge. So the challenge was that because I was starting through a financial aid scheme, you have maximum 4 years to finish your degree, because otherwise, they'll cut you out. And if I was to start marketing from scratch, it was gonna add up more years.
So and you're in what year? You're done a year
I was
already?
in second year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, man. Then there was another course, information management, that could allow me to measure in marketing.
Okay.
So I chose that one, and I was still going to be able to finish in that period.
Got it.
Yeah, then I changed then I graduated. My first degree was in information management.
Yeah.
Then my honors degree was in marketing. Then my master's was in business management. So it's quite a sort of a diverse, I'd say,
journey.
Qualifications.
Okay.
But then it's all started with that simple activation.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I was like, this is what I want to do. Then academically, I needed to align that, and when I was doing my honors in marketing, I co-founded a company called Varsity TV, which was a campus-based TV channel.
Okay.
And also.
So you were mini Richard Branson.
In a way, in retrospect, we started a media company on campus, and really, we pushed that business until I had a fallout with my then business partner, and I just had to pursue Patton Brands. And
that's right after that.
Yeah, so Patton Brands has always been in the background because it all started off as a passion project. Okay. So I was writing articles and blogs about what's happening in the marketing space. But obviously now, over the years, it has evolved into being a media company. Yeah. We've got our own podcast as well, where I interview entrepreneurs and top marketers.
Nice.
We have a series of events that we run called the Patton Brands Dialogues. We have, what else do we have? When I started the Top 16 Youth Owned Brands Awards, it was under Patton Brands, but they quickly grew, and now they their own thing.
Nice.
And and the Rato Agency, of course, where we do digital marketing. All of those, anything that I did after sort of comes from Patton Brands. It being, the I'd say the idea generator.
How long has this journey been from starting Patton Brands?
It's been 8 years.
8 years, eh?
Yeah, 8 years.
Nice. Congratulations.
The first blog I uploaded was on the 1st of December in 2016.
2016, yeah. So, 8 years in the making. Amazing. What's one of the pieces of hard work that you've done that you're very proud of?
Sure.
This 8-year period,
Yeah. Oof. It's plenty, but I think I'll be also sort of selfish in a way and say I'm in the Top 16 Youth Owned Brands Awards.
Okay.
I think it's one of the most, I'd say, profound things I've started. Based on the impact that it has on young people. It always gives me great joy whenever I meet a young person and say, one day I'm going to get my hands on that trophy. I'm working towards building my brand and ultimately, winning a Yoba. So for me, it's a big deal. This year we tested the market in Africa. We invited entries to the rest of the African continent without any marketing budget, but we got entries from 15 African countries.
Wow.
It's
become Pan-African.
Say again?
It's become Pan-African.
Of course. Yes. It has to be Pan-African. Yeah, I think because of the impact, and if I were to say commercially, it's not the most I'd say exciting, ventures to get into, but the impact is what makes me sleep smiling at night, because I know I'm changing the perception that people have towards local brands.
Yes.
I am encouraging young people to dream bigger than just starting a business, but ultimately turning their businesses into household brands.
Yeah.
I mean, that work for me is really
satisfying.
It's just incredible. I mean, hopefully next year you'll be able to join us, and you just feel the energy in the room when we host the actual awards that we're doing the Lord's work there.
Yeah, please invite me. I'd love to see what you guys are doing. In the same breath, like what were some of the toughest moments in this journey of building a business? Times when you felt like I almost want to give up.
Sure.
And every entrepreneur has this.
No, of course. And I mean, I think there's been plenty, plenty of those moments. But I think I'll go back again, to this, one of my favorite projects again, and equally in terms of the impact that it's making in society, but it's also a lot more challenging, it's expensive, to put together an award show and do it well.
Okay.
And for most parts, because of the way it's structured and where I am in my journey, it's dependent on sponsorship.
Okay.
So it's difficult to get sponsorship money.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's, like I say, it's rewarding. Doing this work.
It's worth the
But another thing, maybe that one could say it's been a challenge. The thing is, I'd like to think for most parts I've been ahead of my time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I started a lot of things when I was young, and in as much as you know, people often encourage young people to start stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to tangible support, you get your credibility will be questioned.
Yeah.
You would not get paid what a bigger or more experienced a person gets paid. You always have to prove yourself. And for some parts it can be very exhausting as well, and it can really take a toll on you. You can have a master's degree, you can pull out 3 amazing shows, you can put your own money into initiatives, but someone will still question your credibility.
How did you go about that?
In terms of
many young people are listening and they're going through this problem, this challenge. How do you advise them? Like, how did you go through it? How did you?
I'm still going through it. I'm still young. I'm still building.
Okay.
But I think also you need to identify, I say your soldiers, so to speak.
Okay.
And surround yourself with people that understand what you're trying to build in a way. Because it's easy, to come across people that will discourage you.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough that in as much as I'm facing these challenges, but I have on the other hand, people that are rooting for me and people that are, using their contacts, using their resources to support the initiatives that I run. Yeah. But also at the same time, I think it's also important to, when you are young, continue to study.
Yeah.
I know we're living in an era where, formal education is no longer on the pedestal.
Yeah.
But having a master's degree does count for something.
Okay.
Do you get me?
Yes.
In the bigger scheme of things.
Yeah.
You writing that article about a topic that you're passionate about does count for something.
Yeah.
You volunteering, to be part of an industry body counts for something. You having a mentor, that's experienced in the field that you want to be in counts for something. So there's really not one thing that I can point to that I would say any young person needs to do. Yeah. But it's a combination of things that you have to do. Yeah. If you can, go study. If you can, find a mentor. If you can, volunteer at an industry body. Be involved, be seen. Ultimately, people will warm up to you. I mean, the book that you referred to in the intro, I was approached, by the publisher to contribute, and I mean, you see some of the names that contributed to that book are people that I myself look up to, right? But it's because of the consistent work that I've been doing in the industry. There's another one that's gonna get published, and it will be prescribed in all universities in the country in January next year around digital marketing and stuff. Again, I was approached, to contribute. It takes time. And also, I think if there's any advice that I'll give to any young person that's going through this, is understanding that I always say this to my friends, that money also moves in generations.
Okay. Tell me more.
The current CMO of whatever big company is more likely to give their peer a deal or piece of work or pay them for something than a younger person that they
money moves within like generations, like within.
Exactly. Yeah. So the older generation would look after their own.
It doesn't move vertically; it moves horizontally.
I like that. It moves horizontally.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. My peers are sort of now next in line to sit in those decision making positions, and they will also be like, "Yo, okay, we know Pat can do this. I was in varsity with Pat. Pat helped me with XYZ when you know what I mean." Yes. So all of those things do come together. So it's also just knowing and understanding that certain doors take time to open, and when they do open, you'll run in, and you continue.
You need to be prepared.
You need to be prepared. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, pattern brands, to be honest with you, it never made me money, but it's such a strategic platform that opens up doors, that gives me access to places that ordinarily I wouldn't have.
Interesting.
I wouldn't have access to. Yeah. I can call almost any top marketer in the country. Yeah. And if I say I'm from Pattern Brands and I'm Pattern Brands, I run, can you allocate time for me? Yeah. They would listen.
They open the door, yeah.
You get me? Unlike if you just, hey, I'm running an agency, I want to sell you something. Yeah.
So you've built a platform. It's not just an agency. It's a platform. There's thought leadership, and all those things.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
That's what it is. Okay. And again, sometimes that's my school fees. It's not, like I say, it doesn't make me money.
So what makes you money?
It's Lerato Agency.
Ah, okay. So you run an agency.
Yes.
As the cash cow.
I wouldn't say cash cow, but it keeps the lights on.
It keeps the lights on. Okay, cool. And then Pattern Brands is
yeah. And I guess also what I'm sharing here is that not also everything needs to be about money.
I love it.
You get me? Yes. There's certain things in your journey that you must do in service of others. And somehow it will come back to you.
Absolutely.
But if you always are asking for money, everything needs to be transactional. Yeah. If you invite someone, If you get invited somewhere, you ask, so how much you gonna pay me? You know, business is about, you know, playing the long game.
Yeah.
It's about building relationships.
Yeah.
And as you know, building relationships take time.
Yeah. Yes. One thing I really like about what you're saying is, something I've taken out is it's very close to, I've seen this poster by Nike going around. This artwork about like Rafa Nadal.
Yeah.
And it says greatness is everything. And the reason I refer to that is because you've said that to get to where you've gotten, it's taken many things.
Absolutely.
It's taken everything. Like
it's never one thing. I can't point.
Study, it's knowledge, it's sharing, you know, all that. It's giving back, and it's making money to put in, like it's everything. Yeah, it's super powerful. Yeah, let's segue into the book.
Yes.
Yeah, things every
No, the book that every marketer should most definitely read.
Yes. Why should every marketer read this book?
I mean, the book really, number one, all the authors, amazing marketers.
Okay.
You know, top 50 most successful marketers in South Africa.
Okay.
You know, these are people, like I said, some of them I personally, you know,
look up to. Yeah.
You know, because of the work that they've done. I mean, you have there Dr. Tebe Kalafeng, you have Dr. Pepe Mare, who runs the biggest independent advertising agency in South Africa. You've got the likes of Tulani Sibego, brilliant marketers, Alex Goldberg, you know. So the authors are not just, you know, people. These are accomplished marketers, people that have built great brands and continue to do so. That's one. So you're learning from the best of the best.
Okay.
And secondly, the content. You know, it covers, as you know, marketing is broad, right? There's branding, you know, there's digital marketing, you know, there's different aspects of marketing. PR.
Those things.
You get me?
Yeah.
So this book covers a wide range of topics in marketing. Like, for example, my chapter talks about the 5 C's of building a winning brand. Okay. So my focus is branding. Okay. So I've built a name for myself.
Yeah. I saw brandpreneur somewhere.
Aha.
Okay. That pretty much connecting the dots. Okay.
Got you. Exactly.
Yeah, branding.
That's my thing, right? I've dedicated time studying, building brands.
What can you tell these guys about building brands? Or building a brand? What are the 5 C's, or, you know?
They must get the book now.
Give them a snippet. What you read at the back before you buy the book. Yeah.
So the biggest thing around building brands, I think more than anything, if you're speaking to entrepreneurs, I always say this: the mindset needs to be right.
Okay.
And the reason why I say the mindset needs to be right is understanding that branding is a long-term game.
Okay.
Building a brand is not an overnight thing. It's not an event. It's not like, oh, you're going to throw a party and you're going to invite all the influential people in South Africa and boom, we have a brand. No. It's a series of activities, you know, over time. You know, you try, you test, you reiterate, you fix.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. Once you have that appreciation that building a brand is a long-term game, then you're going to enjoy the journey, because you're not going to be thinking about, oh, I put up an ad. What is the return? You know? I've got an ad playing on Metro FM.
Yeah.
Tomorrow the phone needs to start ringing rather.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's understanding that you need to build relationships with the customers. The customers need to be emotionally connected to your brand. You cited, a meme by Nike or post by Nike. You know, Nike never tells you that their shoes are the lightest or anything of that sort.
True.
But they tell you a story of those that wear their shoes and what it makes them, enables them to achieve, right? So brand building is about storytelling. It's not just about a beautiful logo.
Yeah.
It's a combination of things, you know. So one of the C's that I talk about in my chapter is creativity.
Okay.
You know, you cannot bore your way, you know, and be dull and boring and think you're gonna build a brand. The most memorable brands that we know and that we like and that we spend money on oftentimes are brands that are rubbing against the grain. It's brands that goes zig when the rest are going zag. You get me?
Yeah.
And it's really about that, you know, brand building. I mean, if you get the even in my, I'd say, in my chapter specifically, I cite a lot of local brands, you know, brands that we can relate to.
Yeah.
Again, you know, Africanizing content.
Yes.
You know, because oftentimes when you read books about branding and marketing, you always the case studies are international brands. You know, I mean, just now we're citing Nike because we sort of, you know, conditioned that way.
Yeah.
And it's not that we don't have great African brands, you know. And another, you know, this is not in the book, but it's a C that I always talk about often. It's culture.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you look at a brand like Makosa, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. You know, a great African luxury brand from here in South Africa. Yeah. Doing great things. They've got a shop now in New York. What that brand did, they tapped into the rich African culture and heritage of the Xhosa people and put it in beautiful garments and told a beautiful story of our continent. So
I'm loving to see that. I mean, in Kenya, a couple of entrepreneurs who've come to the podcast are building brands like that. You know, the likes of Icon. Here in South Africa, we had, you know, Batu
of course.
Bhutan. So it's very exciting to see this happening, that culture, and us deciding that it's time to build our own brands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's this generation, right?
Yeah. Again, it's the young people. Yeah.
You know, there are really, you know, coming up with these amazing brand. I mean, it's a brand like, I'm not sure you're familiar with them, Tebe Magugu. You know, brilliant brand, luxury, premium. They were at the Paris Fashion Week.
Wow.
You know, we've done collaborations with Dior, you know, proper brands coming out of the southern tip of the continent.
Yes.
You know,
and I mean, when you talk about the creating, you said Africanizing and telling African stories.
Yes.
I like you have a podcast as well. I think that's the whole goal of this platform is we need to tell the stories of the best marketers in Africa.
Absolutely.
You know, the best brands in Africa.
Absolutely.
And storytelling. You've mentioned storytelling. It's very important. So, well done on that.
Yeah.
I'd like you to mention one more C, please, because I'm very curious about this book. And then the rest of the 3 C's, we'll go and find them.
I mean, you spoke about storytelling. One of the 3 C's are called the other C are called, instead of saying storytelling, is really content creation.
Content. Okay.
You know, stories are very powerful.
Yeah.
You know, I always say you always remember a story more than facts and stats and hard numbers.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah.
So storytelling is very important, and within an African context is also way more important.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not sure, you might have seen, there was an article that I was doing rounds, I think about a month ago, that just someone quantified, you know, the cost of negative stories about the African continent in terms of how much it costs. I think $3 billion US dollars or 30
it costs to the African
billions
GDP.
of US dollars. That's not coming in. Just because of the narrative and the story that is being told about Africa. Yeah. And the majority of people that are telling the stories are actually Africans. Some of them have never been to Africa.
Oh, okay.
And they don't have base here in Africa. They just remotely reporting about the African continent.
Yes.
So we need to tell our own stories. And as you build a brand, the asset that you have, from a marketing and brand building perspective is your story. Because how you started Chapter is different from how I started Pattern Brands. It's different from how I started Lerato Agency.
Yeah.
How Batu started is different how Converse started. It's different how Nike started.
Yeah.
So the story is really what anchors, the brand.
Yeah.
It's every brand story is unique. There are not two brand stories that are similar. How Nike started is different from how Adidas started. Absolutely. If you think about it.
Yeah.
So by storytelling, then we are better able to connect with our consumers or customers.
Yeah, so you've talked about this negative stories coming from outside. And I know one thing is bad news sells.
Absolutely.
Or negative news sells a lot.
Yep.
And I mean, that's just nature. I guess that's how things are. But I guess another thing I see a lot, and I'd like your opinion on this, is Africans telling negative stories, really focusing on negative stories.
Yeah.
And there's an attitude thing at play there, which this is an observation.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how do you think we can change this? And do you think it's true what I'm saying?
Sure. I'd say any society, even America, you do have Americans that are telling a bad American story, or a negative American story, and you do have those that are telling a good story. The unfortunate part is that, like you said earlier on, bad news travel fast.
Yeah.
Bad news capture people's attention quickly, quicker than good news. But also, I must say, though, what's really encouraging is that there is a different energy, that's coming in.
Yeah.
And that energy is positive. We are seeing a lot of people even just taking pride in being African.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And if you think, let's be honest, 10 years ago, it was unthinkable that I wouldn't have imagined me and you having a conversation like this.
It's opened up.
For example, you were here in South Africa for how long now?
For
this time
about
around?
2 weeks now, yeah.
For about 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
And there are people who say negative things about South Africa. That it's xenophobic, Afrophobic, or whatever. But have you experienced anything?
No, I haven't actually. I've had a great experience so far.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
Do we chase away all Nigerian brothers? No.
No, actually,
we do business with them.
Yeah,
we work with them. We collaborate with guys like yourselves. But yet...
But if you're sitting in your desk in Nairobi...
Absolutely, yes. Or one incident that dominates the internet, then boom, South Africa is such a bad country. Or one incident that happens in the African continent, boom, Africa is such a bad continent. Don't go there. It's just unfortunate. That there is some element that's looking at the negative side of things. But for most part, I mean, this is a beautiful continent, man.
Yeah. And I believe it starts with us. So everyone listen, it's about us amplifying the good
Absolutely.
Talking about the good, telling the good
It's
stories.
having these conversations,
Yeah.
you know, and it's unfortunate that these kinds of conversations also won't get much traction because we're not gossiping here. You know, we're talking about honest journeys, honest entrepreneurial stories.
True,
you know,
true. Gossip also sells.
and
True.
unfortunately, there's no sensationalism at play here. So they won't. It may not get as much traction
This podcast
as negative news.
is for the top 1%.
You see,
The guys who know where they're going. I'm serious
Absolutely.
about where they're going, right? Like, yeah. So I'm curious about what you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about marketing, because you know I've had people even in our space, you know, talking about marketing being noise.
yeah.
What would you tell such people who don't really believe or understand the power of marketing?
Interesting enough, yesterday I saw a clip by Rory Sutherland. I'm not sure you know him. He's the chairman at Ogilvy UK.
Okay.
He's one of the brilliant thinkers, in the space from a strategy perspective. Says, the sad news is that, when marketing works, people think it's something else, but not marketing.
What do they think it is?
Like for example, if you've got a Nike sneaker,
Yeah.
right? If I ask you why you bought the Nike sneaker, you wouldn't say, oh, because it was marketed well to me. You say, oh, I just decided I like
just like it.
Exactly. But the color, the design, the price, where you bought it, for most part, it was a function of marketing.
Interesting.
Remember, marketing.
So all of us are consuming marketing, but we don't even realize it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Price. Knowing when to do a sale and not to do it.
Yeah.
To spark demand. It's a function of marketing.
Yeah.
Buy one, get one free. It's a function of marketing.
Yeah.
Opening up a shop at Sandton City versus Jabulani Mall. It's a marketing decision.
Yeah.
There isn't, I'll give you, let's take again, Makosa that we were talking about.
Yeah.
The reason why they have a store in Sandton.
Yeah.
And not in Maponya Mall, in Soweto.
Yeah.
It's because they say we are a luxury brand. We want to be in Diamond Walk, in Sandton, amongst the Gucci's, because that's why when someone walks into our store and they see that our golf t-shirt is 10,000 rands, they won't be shocked.
Be shocked.
Because the location tells you that this is the richest square mile in Africa.
Yes.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
It's the same way the shop that they have in Durban at Oceans Mall.
Yeah.
There they don't call it Diamond Walk, but it's the Platinum Walk.
Yes.
Gucci is also there. Do you get me?
I get you.
That's a function of marketing. It's understanding positioning. It's understanding that location matters.
Yeah.
And location everything has to feed into the brand.
Yeah.
So that's the unfortunate part. There is an underappreciation of for marketing.
Yeah.
And that's why some people think, we just make things look pretty. It's not about that. Saying 99
this
rands.
just spend money. This marketing guys.
Absolutely. 99 rands versus 100 rands.
Yeah.
Right? It's knowing that, if it's under 100 rands, it means it's a bit cheaper.
Yes.
Or whatever. It's the psyche.
Yeah, it's psyche. True.
Do you get me?
It's actually a very serious science. Yeah. Marketing.
Apple.
Yeah.
Outside of, because the Apple one is an interesting one, right? Because the argument is that it's innovation, it's product. But if you look at it,
And marketing, Apple is
The
a
design.
great marketing company.
Yeah.
Actually, there's an argument around is Apple, Nike, all these companies, are they product companies or marketing companies? Coca-Cola.
Marketing company.
Coca-Cola is a marketing company.
Red Bull.
Yeah.
Marketing
True,
company.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
Because, like, if you look at Red Bull,
Yeah.
right? Everything that they do speaks to, you know, being a maverick, challenging the norm,
Yeah.
you know, doing crazy things. That's why they sponsor, you know, even Formula One. That's why they
Adrenaline
sponsor,
stuff.
you know, Sega.
Yeah, all the adrenaline stuff. Skateboarding and
Absolutely.
by what do you call it? All those crazy
Extreme
adventure
sports.
activities. Yeah,
You know,
extreme sports. Yes.
Exactly. Because that's what the brand is about.
Yeah.
Right? That's marketing. You know, deciding which event, which property to sponsor. That's a marketing decision.
Yeah.
Because if you want to reach young, vibrant, stylish, people, then a festival like Hippie,
Yeah.
Cotton Fest makes sense. You get me?
Where your audience is, you pick
Absolutely. That's a function of
marketing.
of marketing. And it's just unfortunate that when something goes wrong, you know, when there are no sales,
Yes.
marketing must do something. Marketing is not working. But when there are sales, it means you have a good product.
Yeah,
It's not marketing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's awesome. I mean, like, I've learned so much about branding and marketing and all today. Very, very exciting stuff. I'd love for you to give us a parting shot.
Yeah.
You know, to the entrepreneurs, to the marketers. Anyone you'd like to address, tell us something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I just want to leave the audience with a quote from one of my mentors, Dr. Tebe Kalafe, you know, who's an African brand authority, if I have to say.
Okay.
You know, this is a man who's been in every country in the continent.
Yeah.
In all the continents in the world.
Okay.
Very well traveled.
Yeah.
But also a great marketer. Right? And a great, say, Pan-Africanist.
Yes.
And he says, for Africa to rise, it must not blame, it must not beg, it must not borrow, it must brand.
It must brand. We need to brand ourselves.
We need to build strong brands that are going to become globally competitive.
Yeah.
Remember, brands pay taxes. What do taxes do? They build our roads. They build our hospitals.
Yes.
So let's say if Apple was in Africa, how would Africa look like?
Yeah. The jobs, the everything. Yeah, it's...
So we need to brand. We must stop blaming the past, begging for aid, borrowing money, but rather build strong African brands.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to change the image of Africa. Those billions that we lose every year because of the negative stories that are being told about us.
The billions that we borrow as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to build brands that are going to create employment for African people, that are going to pay taxes, which will build our infrastructure.
Yeah.
And Africa will be prosperous.
I really like this. And I mean, it's even giving me a mindset change in terms of thinking of businesses and companies as brands.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it has very serious knock-on effect on
Absolutely.
the continent. Yeah.
And
Amazing.
I mean, there is a fundamental difference between a business and a brand.
Yes.
Because a brand is more transactional, more short-term thinking.
A business.
Yes, it's how much are we going to sell? How much are we making? How much are we paying for stuff? Brand is long term.
So build a brand, not a business.
Exactly.
That's perfect, Patricia. Thank you so much, Pat. This was an exciting conversation. And guys, I hope you learned something today. And please remember to check us out on our socials. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere, wherever you want to consume this from.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you next time. Take care.
We got it next. That's how you finesse. We come for they next. We come to collect. Did it all on my own, yeah. When it brought it back home, yeah. Now they calling my phone, yeah. But I'm all in my zone. They not a threat. Tell them reset. When they're at their best, we still not impressed. Did it all on my own, yeah. When it brought it back home, yeah. Bought a watch with the stones, yeah.